Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, I know we just did another episode on Kashtira, specifically for going second, and I now am making one for going first. Why? Well, there's a bunch of things that I wanted to specifically test to see if they were better, and honestly, most of them were different. I wouldn't necessarily say better. I feel like I had a much worse Kashtira matchup, but mostly everything else was better. Not much better, but better at the very least. But I think right now, there are a few things that I would like to change. This is the list that I decided to put together, kind of copying MBT in similar ideas, but kind of changing it up a little bit for my own, as you can tell, mostly by the extra deck. There are a lot of things that I would change as well, but let's quickly start off with the things that I liked. First of all, hand traps. Triple Maxi, Triple Ash Blossom, and Triple Imperm were very, very nice. However, Dimension Shifter actually sucks right now. I think too many people are playing Kashtira, and I only saw it against Kashtira, so it feels like something that I don't even want to main deck. I know that sounds like a crime, and honestly, it kind of is. But most people just aren't playing graveyard-reliant strategies. Sure, it does keep, like, Dragon Link in check and stuff like that, which Dragon Link, if you don't end up shiftering them, is going to kill you. But even with that being said, it's one of those things where it's like, well, you could also just, like, have better options, like, for example, more thrusts, more evenly matched or something like that. So there were other options that I felt like were better. For example, I missed evenly matched. Not having a thrust target for that was nice. Also, not having the third thrust came up a couple of times, and I would have preferred that, especially since we're also playing a pointer of the Red Lotus as a thrust target to set. Yeah, I don't know why we're not playing 3 Triple Tactics Thrust. But yeah, a pointer, especially for going first, is so incredibly insane. Just look at your opponent's hand and go, that one. Get it out of here. So yeah, there's that. Anyway, I also wanted to try Planet Pathfinder because a lot of people have been asking me if it's good. I think it's okay. It does add a lot of consistency, which is nice. I felt like it was never needed, though, most of the time. Mostly because of things like Pot of Desires. So being able to go like Pot of Desires oftentimes solved the issue just as much as a Planet Pathfinder would. So I never really had that issue of like not being able to see a name that I needed to. So yeah, that's kind of it. But I would say that it's probably worth it to play. Mostly because Wraith South is very good, just being able to like add a Kashtira to find that out kind of thing. So that was nice. You don't really take up your normal summon all too much. You kind of do, but not really. But yeah, because Wraith South is at 1 and we don't have terraforming and stuff like that, it makes more sense to go for the Planet Pathfinder. Even with that being said, though, like, I got lucky and never really ended up seeing more than one of this, but if you did, it'd be awful, you know. I'd probably only play 2 of it. That I think if I were to change, I'd probably cut this, and probably these 2, and maybe play like Ghost Ogre, or like, yeah, probably just Ghost Ogre, which sounds weird, but it's like Ghost Ogre in particular is pretty nice against Purrely. And like being able to hit a Kashtira name is also pretty nice. And it's good for like a normal summon to go into Baron, which honestly was way better most of the time. Maybe not all 3 slots, but at least like a Ghost Ogre or 2. Moving on, we have the Kashtiras, Triple Rise Heart, the Double Fenrir, the Triple Unicorn, and 1 Kashtira Scareclaw. Triple Rise Heart is nice. I would have preferred a second Scareclaw Kashtira, so maybe switch out that one. Maybe don't play the Ghost Ogres, who knows. But yeah, definitely having the second Scareclaw came up a couple of times where I was like, oh, I would much prefer to be able to go for this. Triple Pot of Desires is absolutely insane. The 1 Triple Tack for the thrusts, the 1 Pointer as well as the targets for those. We have ourselves the Triple Theosis, the Triple Birth. Triple Birth also came up a couple of times. The 1 Wraith South, obviously the 2 Call Die. It's just a necessary evil at this point. It's really bad sometimes, and it's really good sometimes. And then the 1 Big Bang. We're not playing the Preparations. Preparations is only really good in the mirror match, sometimes. But for the most part, it's not great. So yeah, we're not playing it. And I honestly like that. I think it's much better. As for the extra, we're playing the 1 Baron, 2 Big Eye, 1 Draco Sack. I'd play 2. Honestly, yeah, this one was very nice to have. There were so many times where it was like I could kind of clear my opponent's field and then make like another rank 7. And then off of that, it was like, oh, I can go like Draco Sack and like pop an additional card to do something there. So that was nice. Draco Sack felt great though. Yeah, every time it showed up. Red Eyes Flare Metal was also pretty good for the most part. Being able to just be like, okay, you have however many activations, otherwise you die, was very, very nice. Titanic Moth was just another way to get like additional damage by like attacking directly over things, which is kind of nice, mostly if there's like an Avramax or something along those lines, and you could just be like, okay, cool, I'm going to summon like 2 things, make Titanic Moth, and then just attack over and make Zeus. So there's that. I wish there was a way that I could get an additional material onto Zeus, but there never really was. So it always ended up being like a 3-mat Zeus, which didn't really do much. But of course we're playing that. We're playing the triple Shingra era, and MBT was playing triple Rise Heart. I never even needed the second one, for the most part. Most of the time, it was just like the regular Kashtiras, like the main deck ones, that actually mattered. So I never needed the third one, let alone the second one. So there's that. Going second, I felt like I needed it a little bit more to get like the second one, because you'd use the Arise Heart to make Zeus, and then like, hey, you can make a second one. But yeah, anyway. And then we had Ausa. Ausa's kind of nice, being able to like grab their own Fenrir or like a Scareclaw Cache or something along those lines. Zeroboros is funny, and then Underworld Goddess. So yeah, that's it for the list. Let's hop into the duels and show you how this deck performed. Alright, so here we are going first, and that's a Dimension Shifter in hand. You'll love to see it, for the most part. We're going to start off with the Dimension Shifter, to which my opponent will chain the Maxi, and I go, well, there's nothing I can really do about this. Now, here's where I make the mistake. I should have fired the Shifter in main phase after the Pot of Desires, so that I can get, like, if my opponent decides to Maxi me there, I can get the triple tactics. But it didn't matter. I was not punished. My opponent goes for the Ash Blossom here, and I go, cool. I have a really good hand, all things considered, so I'm like, this is fine. I'm going to look at their hand and see what they have. And it's a good thing I did, too, because it reveals... hold on. It reveals that my opponent is playing Kashtira as well. And I go, there's Birth, but there's Big Bang, and there's Dark Ruler. Don't really care about Dark Ruler. That Birth is a problem, though. And so I'm like, okay, cool. So we're going to get rid of that. We're going to normal summon the planet. Oh, right. It's banished. Yeah, this is where I was like, oh, maybe Pathfinder should be kind of cut down. I always felt like Desires was much better than the Pathfinder. Like, I'd almost always wanted to see Desires over the Pathfinder. Yes, Pathfinder could find Wraith Soth, but it loses to things like Imperm, it loses to things like Ash, it loses to things like a Gamma, or if you end up going second, it's way worse to find a Wraith Soth than it is to find a Desires, so I'd much rather cut this guy down just by 1, probably, in order to play more Desires. Desires was almost always like just a boon to have, unless I drew Desires off of Desires, which happened occasionally. Anyway, so yeah, I just normal summon this and it has. And I'm like, okay, cool. My opponent top decks the Arise Heart and banishes 3 additional cards, which is a pointer, cringe. That's fine. It's fine. I'll just top deck the Theosis here. It's fine. Oh. Okay. So I go for the Rise Heart here and banish the Fenris. We're going to go for the Theosis. We know in hand is Big Bang as well as the Dark Ruler, so I'm like, that's fine. We're going to go for this. Basically, I know that like Dark Ruler, and if they happen to top deck something like a Unicorn, could be the death of me. But honestly, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to get in as much damage as I can and be like, cool, you can Dark Ruler me, but you will have nothing if you do not end my board. So they can literally only activate 1 card, so they can't like activate anything in the before they activate the Dark Ruler. Out comes the Dark Ruler, obviously. I'm like, cool. They go to the battle phase and they top deck it evenly, and I'm like, cool. I'm just gonna keep the Flare Metal. They just concede there. Yeah, there's nothing they can really do. That was a big brick fest, but it was very funny. So there you go. All right, here we are once again going first, and once again I'm going to fire off that Shifter. Cool. During the main phase, we are going to go for the Fenris here, and here is where I make a mistake. My opponent is playing Chaos Hunter. I guess I should have activated Pot of Desires, because now it can't banish anything. This is wild. I've never seen this, and I honestly don't think it's very good, all things considered. Yes, technically, it does stop a lot of the Kashtira stuff. It's also very bad against everything else. My opponent was playing 3 of this card. That's the problem that I have with the current game, or the current idea of the game. A lot of people are main decking a lot of things to specifically beat Kashtira, so I don't think Kashtira is in a great spot right now. So there's that. Labyrinth is probably the best performing deck, I would say, mostly due to the fact that while, yes, it doesn't do great going second, it's still very, very strong going first, and no one is really caring about Labyrinth. So there's that. Anyway, I'm going to go for the Wraith Soth here with the Pathfinder, because it's like all I can do. I'm going to grab Unicorn, and like there's nothing really that I can do. But grabbing the Wraith Soth is very nice, because now they can't just like walk over me with Chaos Hunter. I'm like, well, maybe this Ash will get me there, but it's obviously Purrely, so it's probably not. They're going to grab the My Friend, activate the My Friend, activate the effect to reveal, and I go, nope, not going to happen. And then they go, cool, Sleepy Memory for Delicious Memory. They pitch the Delicious, and of course, they already had it in the hand. Out comes the Purrely. Cool. They're going to activate the effect of the Purrely. They're going to go 1 and 2 and 3, and there's a pretty hip hip hooray. Oh, you'll love to see it. So my opponent's going to go for the Delicious Memory. They are going to then attach the Delicious Memory to their Plump, as well as the Purrely. They're going to go for the Purrely effect here as well to grab up the Pretty Memory. And I'm like, oh, yeah, this is probably the correct play, all things considered. Then we get rid of the Chaos Hunter, and we have our other monster. And no, Now, I understand why they value the Chaos Hunter. I don't agree with it. They know I have Unicorn in hand. Unless you are making a Zeus here, this is a mid-play. I have the out already in my hand with Unicorn. Yes, you can negate the effect of the Unicorn, sure, but I now have the ability to deal with your Chaos Hunter. Why not just deal with it yourself? And then you have the Plump as well to potentially go into an additional play. But alas, sure, I guess that makes sense. You're not really going to make a Noir off of it, but I still feel like it would have been better to keep the Plump. But sure, whatever. Anyway, out comes the attacks here. They don't decide to make a Zeus, which I think would have been probably better, which is why I think keeping the Plump would have been nice. But alas, I draw into a second Unicorn. I'm like, cool. Special summon the Unicorn. Just immediately deal with this guy. Just going to deal with it and not really think about it too much. I'm going to activate the effect to fetch out the Omni Negate. I'm like, great. All I need to see here off of this Pot of Desires is just about anything. There are so many options for me. A Birth, I believe, is... yeah, a Birth would do it, because I could normal summon the Unicorn. A Kashtira Riseheart would do it. I think... No, Scareclaw wouldn't do it. Theosis would do it. Ash Blossom does it. Yeah, lots of things like that would do it. It at least gives me something. And yeah, out comes the Ash Blossom. I'm like, cool, fantastic. That does it. We get to make the Baron. And this is going to be pretty simple. We pop the Beauty to trigger the Purrely, so that we just negate the Purrely, and then with the Appointer, we know the last card in hand isn't going to be able to do anything, so during the draw phase, I'm just going to be able to fire the Appointer, and then in the standby phase, we can bring back the Fenris, so that we have that as well. So there's that. I go for the Appointer, and my opponent just concedes there. So, good game. Weird tech. Now here we are going second, and besides weird techs, what about weird decks? So I'm going to fire off the Maxi that I had in hand, and my opponent is going to reveal that they are on Runick something. Now, seeing a Runick card doesn't inherently tell me anything about anything, because Runick can be played in so many different decks. So I'm like, okay, is this Naturia? And then I see Barrier Statue of the Heavens. Oh, it's Runick Stun. Alright. Let's see what we can do off of this. My opponent activates the effect of the Runick Fountain, normal summoning the Barrier Statue of the Heavens, and passes. Okay, I draw Birth here, and this is exactly why, this card right here, is why Runick's not very good right now. Not a Riseheart, this one. And I will show you throughout this duel why that is the case. So, we're going to normal summon the Unicorn. That's one. Yeah, you can lock me out of my normal summons all you want, or sorry, my special summons all you want. I'm going to normal summon a big guy. Can you deal with that? Cool. I'm also going to search a second Birth, right? And the reason for this is because, well, my opponent is going to go for the activation of Slumber, to which they will then activate their Runick Fountain. I'm like, sure, you can do that, because guess what? As turn player, my Birth gets the activation first, after they activated a spell card, so I can't actually do anything, but I'll show you in a second as to why this is bad. They also banished 3 really mid cards for me. I'm going to activate the second birth here, just as additional protection in case they have destruction. Basically, at this point, I can't really do anything. They slumbered me. There you go. They are going to negate my monster effect. Cool. Banishing a few additional cards. And then go for the Pot of Duality. They're going to go for 1, 2, and 3. And they end up revealing and grabbing the Teekboo, which I don't know if that's necessarily the best option, but oh, sure. They're going to go card of Demise, chaining Runick Destruction to pop my birth. And I'm like, that's absolutely fine. This is why we grabbed the second one and activated it as well. They're going to draw 3 cards, and then they're also going to attempt to draw additional cards. However, I'm going to stop that because birth is now chain link 2. So during their turn, I can always go for my birth after they activate a quick play, which then allows me to banish their cards face down, preventing them from getting any advantage off of this Runick Fountain. They're also going to pass the turn, and nothing I can really do there. I'm going to draw for turn in Ash Blossom, which actually is very, very nice, and we're going to go and grab up another birth. They don't decide to interact with that, so there's that. I'm going to normal summon the Planet Pathfinder here, and my opponent decides to go for Smiting Storm. Not really anything I can do for that, but out comes the Runick Fountain, and since it is my turn, I have to Ash here, because the birth would be chain link 1 if I were to activate it, and then we go chain link 2 to shuffle back the cards. So no point in activating the birth here. However, now that they've activated the spell, or the field spell, I'm going to banish all of their cards face down. We're going to go and walk into the opponent's monster, and banish a Hugin face down, and then also walk into Ash, and I go, oh, well, that kind of sucks. Anyway, we're going to go for the birth here as well in order to special summon a non-Xyz, and out comes the Teekboo. I'm like, okay, there's not really anything I can do about that. Sure, that's fine. Out comes the Rise Heart, and then I'm going to activate the Planet Pathfinder to grab up the Wraith South. The reason for the Wraith South here is pretty simple, but being able to get an additional pop, as well as boosting my monsters, is pretty nice. I'm also going to banish with the Rise Heart in order to get an additional card here. I'm going to grab back the Rise Heart because of reasons. I don't really know, but it's fine. Out comes Draco Sack. This is where having a second Draco Sack would have been nice. I just have to tribute off the Draco Sack to try and pop the Teekboo. Obviously, they are going to protect, but that's fine, because I'm just going to try and get more monsters onto my side of the field. Out comes the Rise Heart, out comes the Scareclaw, and that's fine. Honestly, I don't know if it was worth it to go for even the Draco Sack there, but of course they top deck the Runick Tip to grab Destruction. I'm like, that's totally fine, my guy. And I'm like, okay, if they're smart, they actually activate the Fountain here before I can even activate my birth. Because if you don't know, you do have to target 3 cards and banish them face down in your opponent's graveyard. Well, turns out my opponent has 2 cards, so had they just activated the Fountain there, they would have been able to shuffle back 1 card and at least get that additional draw. I don't know if that's necessarily worth it, but I mean, you're not getting your destruction anyway because I have 2 births. It's not like you have Twin Twisters. It's not what that is. So, there you go. They're going to pop 1, and I'm like, that's fantastic. Out comes the Runick Fountain. They're going to try and shuffle back 2. I'm going to banish all 3 of those to face down so that they can't do anything. They also happen to hit a Kashtira Theosis, so that's also cool. I'm going to grab back my Fenris. Anyway, we now have Fenrir in our hand, and we're going to banish everything face down. And they can't really do anything. They're going to go to battle, end of battle, and pass the turn. Coolio. We're going to draw for turn, Big Bang, which is not great, but that's okay. I don't really care. We're going to walk into the Ash Blossom and to deal 17 with our Rise Heart, and just kind of not really... Oh, cool, evenly matched. This actually is pretty helpful, and the reason being is because now I can normal summon Fenrir. The Fenrir is really nice. They should not have evenly matched there, and this is why. Fenrir actually now just means that if they activate any other monster effect, or if I get to the next turn and can proceed to my battle phase, I can deal with the Fountain or the Teekboo, whichever one I choose. Which is not exactly great for them, which is also why I search up another Fenrir. So yeah, at this point, it doesn't really matter what they draw. It's got to be, like, insane. So yeah, they just set a card and pass. And they went to battle phase there, and I was like, do we have another evenly match? Like, what are we doing? Are we just going to battle because it's instinctual? Anyway, it doesn't really matter. I go to battle phase here, and I banish their Runick card, and it is another evenly. But they're on 500 life points, and I'm like, cool. Guess what? I can get 2/7 out onto my side of the field and prevent you from doing anything here. So we're going to banish the Unicorn. It's the only thing I have here to banish. And then we are going to Xyz summon, because now we have 2 level 7s, into the Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. This allows them to basically only have 1 card activation. So if they do not have... They literally can't do anything. It doesn't matter what they draw into. They literally can't do anything to actually prevent me from winning this game. I do have 5 cards in my deck right now. So if there was a possibility of them being able to banish all of my cards, which there isn't, then yeah, maybe. I guess they could grab, like... No, even that wouldn't do it. I was like, they could grab, like, Golden Droplet, but the thing is, if they go Golden Droplet, activate the effect, they banish 4, I draw 1, that's 5, I don't have to draw another card, and then they take the 500 damage, burn, and they die. So there's literally nothing that they can do here. If they flip anything, if they do anything, I guess they could have gotten, like... I was going to say Skill Drain, but Skill Drain requires you to pay 1,000. So yeah, I don't really think that there was anything there that they could have done, realistically. So, good game. Alright, we're back with the deck, and honestly, Kashtira is fun. I'm not gonna lie, it is not as bad as I think a lot of people are making it out to be. Yes, it does kind of stifle out a lot of decks, which is a problem. I think that's more so the problem that at least I personally have with it. I can't, for example, play Dragon Link in full power because, you know, shifter. But for the most part, I feel like it's not actually all that bad. I feel like this meta mostly is toxic due to cards that are kind of not Kashtira. It's more so things like Thrust, like a Pointer, like Maxi, and of course the Makanko cards. I'm not gonna lie, the Makanko cards are a nightmare to play against, especially in a best of 1. In a best of 3, where you can actually prepare for them and actually, you know, build your deck accordingly, or build your field accordingly, or for example, go second against them if you need to. There are lots of things that you can do to pretty easily beat Makanko in a best of 3 that just aren't available in a best of 1. I know I'm talking about Makanko again, but just, I think for the most part, this isn't the worst meta. In fact, I'd still say that it's pretty decent, all things considered. I think the biggest problem, though, is all of the insane sack cards. You basically can't play the game without getting absolutely destroyed. Things like Zeus, things like Thrust, things like Maxi, things like Shifter. There are just cards that automatically win you the game that make this really annoying to play in, because it feels like it's not necessarily the skill of the player or the deck building challenge or anything like that. It just kind of feels like, cool, I'm playing big blowout cards. Do I see them or do you? And that's kind of it. So it's not really the greatest and it's not really the most fun. But I don't think it's Kashtira's fault. I think it's partially its fault, but I don't think it's fully its fault. Also, why is this deck so expensive? There is no right for this deck to be as expensive as it is. Why is Theosis a UR? Why is Riseheart a UR? Why is a Riseheart also a UR? And why is all of the cards that are actually important to the strategy and, you know, necessary 3-ofs SR or UR? There is not a single non-Kashtira card, or sorry, there's not a single Kashtira card in here that is not SR or above. No reason for that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. That's going to be it. If you did indeed enjoy it, a like is very much appreciated, and if you want to check out more content like this, as well as more Yu-Gi-Oh!, then just be sure to subscribe. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.